But regardless, menstrual hygiene education is key when it comes to being a young woman, and girls are getting their periods at younger and younger ages. I got mine when I was 11, and I had 3 friends that had theirs since they were 7. So having knowledge of how to properly take care of your body during that time of the month is absolutely key. And if you're living on the street, it's obviously not going to be a priority. So if Happy Period or Dignity Matters or one of the other dozens of organizations just here domestically can provide not only access to the products and inventory, but education to homeless menstruators or underserved menstruators, it's a small dent that you can put into this ridiculous crisis. And that small dent is a ripple in a wave that will echo, and it will continue to spread, and it may not feel like an impact because oftentimes it doesn't, but it really, really, really is. So again, even if it's just a period packing party and a distribution to your local shelters, get your friends, family, co-workers, students involved, your kids, your sons, and just go out and do it. I talked about how to get involved in the last video, so I'll link that, but I'm not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole. But I just wanted to touch on the menstrual hygiene tax because it did tie into the Instagram question that was asked and hopefully answered. The other thing I wanted to touch on before I go into the poll questions, which are going to be a little bit more fun, are just kind of what's going on here specifically in Oakland. So although we service San Francisco, Berkeley, and some underlying areas, sorry guys, I have to shush, it's really hot. I just want to speak to what's going on in Oakland because Oakland is actually the hottest mess of all the messes. So I'm going to just give you some perspective on how bad the poverty gap is, how bad the housing crisis is, how bad the gentrification is, and just give you hopefully some perspective on the exponential rate at which this situation is getting worse. Granted, the Bay Area, you have Silicon Valley rubbing against a culture and a population that has been here long before any of that was even part of our paradigm, and those two things are basically creating a fault line on top of a very physical fault line, and sooner than later something's going to give, and either the Bay Area is going to implode or we're going to find a way out of this. Hopefully it's the latter, but anyways, Oakland homelessness population rose 47%. Now this is from the San Francisco Chronicle, and this was published 7 days ago. Oakland's homeless population rose 47% in the last 2 years. So between 17 and 19, we've jumped almost 50%. It's one of the biggest 2-year increases of any California city, and it is worse than the increase that San Francisco is dealing with. So in 2017, Oakland had about 900 sheltered folks and about 1,900 unsheltered residents, totaling 2,700 and change. Where are we right now? Our homelessness rate is now 940 per 100,000 population, again slightly higher than San Francisco and Berkeley. This is growing by the day. 34% of the homeless people in Alameda County, which is Oakland, live in tents, 23% in vehicles. African Americans make up 50% of the homeless population, despite comprising just 11% of the nation's total population. The biggest growth area in homelessness in Oakland are people who still have a car or an RV and are choosing to live in it because they can't afford housing in Alameda County. So just to give you an idea of how bad it is, and I've mentioned this in previous vlogs, I live right next to the overpass, literally 3 doors down from the 580, which is our major interchange here in East Bay. If you're from Orlando, imagine living 3 doors down from I-4. Right under the overpass, over the past, I'd say about year and a half, there was always a couple folks there in and out, maybe 3 to 5 tents, but right now, just in that encampment alone, there are, as I counted earlier this week, there are 60 tents. I can't speak to exactly how many people are living there, but there are children, and there's about 27 women that live just in that encampment. Encampments that look just like that are everywhere. They're under every overpass. They're everywhere, and this is just Oakland. Granted, there are fewer women on the streets than there are men, but the reality is these are newly homeless people. We talked about this in the last vlog. Most of these people are not mentally ill. Most of these people are not active drug users. I mean, that is obviously like a huge component of this, but the reality is these are people just like you and me who may not have the biggest safety net. They could be out of a job and have no friends or family to speak of, no support system, and if you don't have first, last months, and a security deposit, and an emergency fund sitting in your bank account, and you miss a paycheck, or your .com goes out of business, or you're out of work for whatever, you don't qualify for unemployment, all of those variables, you're living right where they are. A lot of these people actually are gainfully employed, they just can't afford to live here. We take for granted how thin of a line it is between having food and shelter and access to pads and tampons and living in that situation. So it's a constant reminder to check our privilege and to realize that a very simple solution, again, is to get your churches, your schools, your employers, your friends, your family involved, host a period packing party, have people bring products, they can go to the dollar store and get them, assemble them into a month's supply of kits, find out where your folks are on the street, whether they're encampments or if they're are in shelters, sober living homes, domestic violence shelters. Load these people up. Do it as often as you can, financially, energetically, psychospiritually. It does make a huge difference. Take the time to have conversations with these people and learn what their situation was, because you will be surprised at how much your bias has informed you as to what you think a homeless person is or looks like or what caused them to be, because 99% of the time it's none of the above. So just wanted to give you kind of an idea of how bad it is here. It's definitely this bad in LA, if not worse. New York is dealing with it, of course. Places like Baltimore, where we have a chapter, Philly. I don't know hard and fast stats, off the top of my head on those communities, but once again, we talked about this in the previous vlog, this is going on in affluent areas as well. We have a chapter in Connecticut, we have a chapter in places, we have chapters in places where you just wouldn't assume this would be an epidemic. It is. Whether or not people are on the street, there are women that are seeking refuge from domestic violence, there are women that are seeking refuge in terms of trying to get sober. There are women that are trying to simply shelter themselves and unfortunately their children. So reach out to your shelters, reach out to your churches, find out what they need, what they don't need, and go from there. It's the simplest thing you can do. So just wanted to give you some context on that. Again, just to reiterate, Bay Area is going to be continuing to do drives and distributions because the grassroots aspect of this is absolutely necessary to keep these folks flush with products. But we are going to be turning our attention to fundraising and education, not just us, but the organization as a whole, and there will be more information on that to come, so please stay tuned to the channel and to the Facebook and Instagram pages. But the poll that we took on Instagram, which we got an overwhelming response from, I'm surprised we got more responses than we have followers, but the first question that we asked was, do you enjoy period sex? Now, we've posted on this on Facebook and on Instagram before. Chelsea does a lot of talk and social media posting around this. she is huge on destigmatization around menstruation in general, but especially around period sex. We actually, at our last event here in Oakland, which was our 30th anniversary event, did a period confessional, and a lot of us ended up talking about period sex. It seems to be a very taboo subject, even amongst women, which is shocking to me. But again, I think this harkens back to the fact that sex education is lacking, and education specifically around a woman knowing her body is just completely lacking. I mean, 37 years old, I'm still learning. There are people much older than me that are still learning, so the shame and the destigmatization around period sex is a big thing that we talk about because we do want to destigmatize it. Whether or not you feel or experience shame around period sex is one thing. The other component of that conversation is it's totally okay not to like it, right? So a lot of women just don't feel comfortable having sex when they're on their period. They don't enjoy it. And of course, I'm not talking about having sex when you're having the worst cramps of your life, obviously. That's a non-starter. But there's plenty of reasons why you wouldn't be into it. Whether it's the mess, it doesn't feel good, it just ain't your jam, that's fine. But I think in the experience that I've had in speaking with women and in the feedback that I'm getting on Instagram is that it's more of just, there's still like an inherent taboo there. On top of that, the second question we asked is, does your partner enjoy period sex? Now, here are the stats. So, do you enjoy period sex? 67% of the women that responded said yes, 33% said no. Does your partner enjoy period sex? That was 50-50, which I found really, 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 really interesting. But also not surprising, because in my experience, it's been about the same. It's kind of like a roll of the dice if they're going to like it or if they're not. When I say they, I'm referring to heteronormative men. Women don't give a fuck, in my experience, but I think it's a crapshoot whether your man's going to be into it or not. And if you're into it, you need to not be afraid to ask for it, because I think begging a larger conversation for another time, that is another thing that women are just inherently trained to do, which is be afraid to ask for what they want. So please comment below, please comment on Instagram and tell us why or why not when it comes to period sex. Why do you like it? Why do you not like it? If you don't like it, tell us why. Let's learn from each other. Let us know what other questions you have, whether you want to post them publicly here on the channel, if you want to DM, if you want to comment on the Instagram posts. Let us know what questions you have around these issues, specifically if you'd like to find out how to get involved, whether you're local as a volunteer or in leadership, because we are looking for more support on that level, or wherever you are in the United States. If you want to get involved and need support, we need ambassadors and chapter heads. DM me and we will get you set up and show you how to rock and roll a chapter from Jump Street. If you have any ideas about how to better serve the community here in the Bay Area, whether it's Oakland, San Francisco, Alameda, Dublin, Berkeley, or anything surrounding, please let us know. We need feedback and we need your guys' insight. So there are always things that we can learn from one another, so please help to share and disseminate the information, and don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and please do give us a follow on Twitter at @PeriodBay and on Instagram. Alright, thank you guys for watching. See you on the other side.